When the Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show ended, the writers ran out of time to tell the story of how Leonardo became the leader of the group, and they hinted at the plot being resolved for the upcoming movie. However, the movie was never going to be about Leonardo becoming a leader, and it was definitely not supposed to come out after the show ended. Today, I'll discuss Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie. In February 2019, Nickelodeon announced that they were producing a Rise of the TMNT movie for Netflix, with the idea of, hopefully, reaching a wider audience for the show through that platform. The movie was going to be planned independently from the TV show. By Netflix's request, it had to be centered around something all TMNT fans could easily recognize. Furthermore, it had to be understood by casual viewers who had never watched the show. As a result of these requirements, Casey Jones and the Krang were included in the initial plans for the movie, which was being worked on by several of the TV show crew members. However, you must understand the context in which this movie was supposed to come out. The show was initially planned to have 3 seasons, and the film would have come out in the middle of its run. Casey Jones would have made his debut, voiced by Joe Manganiello. This casting decision had to be changed because Nickelodeon requested the character to be younger. In that original plan, Casey was supposed to be more in line with Jack Burton from Big Trouble in Little China, like the characters usually depicted in most adaptations. Another difference with the final version was that they planned the quintessential Raph and Casey story, where Raph would be venting on a rooftop when he would notice Casey wailing on a mutant. This would have made Raph think that Casey was a villain, not knowing that the bad guy was working for the Krang. The bad guy in question would have been Armagon, who they consider making like a tiny fish inside of a shark armor, and Casey Jones, instead of being a time traveler, was a dimension traveler. At the time, Ant Ward and Andy Soriano, the creators of the show and the movie, were deep into Season 2 production. And all of a sudden, the episode count for the season was halved. This represented a massive problem for their 3-season Splinter arc. They decided to stop all the episodes in the pipeline to create a finale that would finish all the plots. Because of these changes, and Netflix also wanted to go with a more cinematic experience, the project had to go into a page 1 rewrite in January 2020. The story was finally written, and then the entirety of the movie was produced during the COVID lockdowns. But the production was possible, perhaps thanks to COVID, as the team that worked for the show was still available for the movie. This meant that people didn't need to be trained in the nooks and crannies of Rise. Of course, crew members could have decided to move on, but they chose to stay and finish this thing, even with offers to join the Spider-Verse project. Also, they didn't need separate teams for each project because the movie was produced right after the show ended. However, the changes in the narrative brought some new problems. For example, this new Casey Jones made sense because he initially came from another dimension. But since then, the show already established its own version of Casey and Cassandra Jones. So when the time-traveling plot device was incorporated to simplify the story for kids, they had to make the 2 characters part of the same family without undoing the Foot Recruits arc. All these delays moved the movie from summer 2021 to August 2022. The movie takes place a few months after the show's end in 2020. Making seasons 1 and 2 happen in 2018 and 2019 respectively. And because the team ran out of time during the season finale, the last line of the show was about Leonardo becoming the leader, which was never supposed to be developed in this movie. But after the episode came out, the writers decided that they needed to tell that story, and that was how Leonardo became the main protagonist of this movie. The movie was plotted and directed by Ant Ward and Andy Soriano, with a screenplay by Tony Gamalobo and Rebecca May. The cast from the show returned: Ben Schwartz, Brandon Michael Smith, Eric Boza, Josh Brenner, Kat Graham, and Omar Benson Miller, with new additions like Haley Joel Osment as Casey Jones, and Jim Peary and Tox Olagondoye as the Krang, a race from another dimension responsible for creating the dark armor that gave birth to the Shredder. Since this time around, the writers weren't restricted by the 11-minute run, they were able to go places they weren't allowed to go before with these characters, which resulted in a more engaging and high-stakes story. The movie opens with a battle in New York, set in 2044, where the Krang are engaged in combat against a resistance group led by Leonardo. Alongside him was Casey Jones, the son of Cassandra Jones and a student of Leonardo. They then decided that the only option left was to stop the invasion before it started. So Leonardo commanded Mikey, now a mystic warrior, to open a time gateway into the past. Mikey and Leonardo sacrificed themselves to ensure Casey's success. Once in the past, Casey decided to follow April. In the present, Leonardo was leading a misguided, self-centered training session. Raph, the overprotective older brother, felt they should focus on training to become better heroes. The session would be interrupted by a robbery of a relic perpetrated by Hypnopotamus and Warren Stone. But Leonardo's obsession with being the center of attention made them lose the key to the Foot Clan. Mistakenly believing she was under threat, April took Casey Jones prisoner to their new lair in an abandoned subway station. There, the Turtles learned that Casey came from the future to prevent the Krang invasion. This alarmed Splinter, who recognized that name from legend. They came from the stars, ruthless, unmerciful, and with one desire: to enslave our world like so many before us. But thanks to 4 great mystic warriors who forged a mighty weapon, the Krang was locked in a prison dimension beyond this realm. Was this a nod at the Ninja Tribunal from the 2003 show? We may never know. After hearing Casey Jones calling him a great master, Leonardo felt vindicated in his point of view of being a good leader, ignoring Raphael's concerns about him putting all of them in danger. Aware that the key was in the possession of the Foot Clan, the Turtles pursued them to prevent the release of their ancient masters from the prison dimension. However, they were too late. 3 Krangs were unleashed, cutting off the Turtles' access to their mystical power source and threatening to unleash the Technodrome into our world. This take on the 3 Krang seemed to be based on the Phantom Zone criminals from the Superman mythos. Since these beings are related to the Empyrean that gave the Turtles their mutations and their powers, they were able to cut off their connection to their mystic powers. Upon witnessing Splinter's near death, Raphael, in a panic, activated the escape pods for everyone. Knowing that getting the key was essential, Leonardo rejected his pod and went for it. But this left him vulnerable, and he only survived the Krang's attack thanks to Raphael's sacrifice. Raph used his pod on Leonardo, putting him to safety and leaving him behind at the mercy of the Krang. Leonardo felt betrayed by Casey for withholding information about Raphael's capture by the Krang. But for Casey, this indicated a change in history. Not satisfied with the results and filled with guilt, Leonardo decided to attack the Krang to recover Raphael, taking Mikey, Donnie, and Casey with him. April and Splinter were left behind to figure out how to destroy the key. Captive of the Krang, Raphael refused to tell them where the Turtles were hiding, but Krang 1 was able to get the location by reading his mind. After this, the Krang transformed the Foot Clan into their hive mind servants. The Turtles managed to trace Raphael to the top of the Metro building. Despite his brother's objections, Leonardo chose to use the subway tunnels to reach the tower. While explaining the other Turtles' futures, Mikey learned that he would eventually become the most powerful mystic warrior the world had ever known. Things started going wrong for all of them. In the subway tunnels, the Turtles were attacked by Krang vines, destroying Donnie's hard shell. At the lair, Splinter and April had to escape with the key after realizing they had the Krang at their doorsteps. Donnie and Mikey went inside the turtle tank to get a new shell, but were quickly trapped inside it. Leonardo and Casey were also trapped, mostly because Leonardo couldn't listen to his team, thinking he needed to have all the answers. Casey confronted him and told him that he was wrong about him. The world needed Master Leonardo, not the attention-seeking Leonardo. Knowing that everybody would die fighting the Krang in the future, Leonardo finally saw what he was doing wrong. Just like his brother warned him before, unless he took his leadership role more seriously, everyone he knew would die. Meanwhile, at the top of the Metro Tower, the Earth Protection Force unsuccessfully tried to take down the Krang. The Turtles freed themselves and, with the help of Splinter and April, were able to find Raphael. But he wasn't the same old Raph. He was Krangified, and he was now seeing them as his enemies. Raphael's transformation dealt a devastating blow to his family, enabling the Krang to seize the key required to summon the Technodrome. A portal to another dimension opened, and the Technodrome began its descent over New York. Leonardo realized that in Casey's future, Raphael had not been transformed into a Krang zombie, indicating their timeline had changed and there was still hope. He boosted the team's morale and pushed them into brainstorming a solution that, in this case, involved taking over the Technodrome and sending it back to the prison dimension. Casey, April, and Splinter were assigned to get the key back, while Donnie and Mikey were assigned to take control of the ship. Leonardo's mission was to get Raph back. Although they achieved some success, the Krang uncovered their plan and captured Mikey and Donnie, leaving Leonardo at his brother's mercy. There's an interesting detail about Krang 1's Technodrome throne. It was placed atop the giant skull of a Triceraton. Leonardo used words to fight Raphael by telling him he finally understood him and admitting he was sorry. This made Raphael gain control over his mind and unlock the Hamato Ninpo for all of them again. In the final fight, the Turtles battled the Krang leader above New York until Mikey and Donnie got thrown away. Leo sent Raphael to protect their fall and was left fighting the Krang alone. With Casey near the key, Leonardo ordered him to close the portal once he reached the other side with Krang 1. After tricking Krang 1 into the other side, Casey closed the gate, trapping them forever. This action destroyed the Technodrome and ended the invasion. However, the Turtles were in shock after the apparent loss of their brother. Refusing to give up, Mikey, knowing he was destined to become a powerful mystic warrior, harnessed the mystic energy to open a portal to the other dimension to retrieve his brother. And with the help of his brothers, he was able to do it without dying. Also, Donnie finally used his drill to keep Krang 1 trapped in there. Krang 2 ended up being a prisoner of the Earth Protection Force, and under the supervision of someone who looked too much like Agent Bishop. The city reverted to normalcy, and the Turtles began to see themselves as heroes ready to rise to any challenge the city might face. The movie, with a 79% tomato meter score and 94% audience approval, was well received, sparking hopes for continuation of the story. Andy Soriano and Ann Ward had ideas for follow-up movies, including a darker tale involving Splinter being mind-controlled by the Rat King, leading to a conflict with his sons. Fans also tried to bring back the show, but with Tales of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coming out this April, it's hard to imagine Nickelodeon producing two shows competing for the same audience. This movie focused on leadership, specifically on the importance of leading a team towards a shared purpose rather than relying on traditional directive methods. Leonardo's character arc is central to this theme. His growth as a leader and a hero was spurred not by adherence to his own beliefs, but by learning from others' perspectives, especially Raphael's exemplary actions and Casey's honest feedback. The film also explores the theme of predetermination. Initially, the Turtles are influenced by foretold aspects of their future, seemingly locked in a predetermined path. They were even affected by Splinter simply telling them that their new leader was Leo. However, Leonardo realized their timeline had already been altered, implying they had the freedom to shape their destinies. This realization led Leonardo to embrace responsibility and become a role model, while Mikey became a powerful mystic warrior. Their transformation, driven by mutual love and support, underscored that their future wasn't fixed, but shaped by their choices and motivations. In essence, the film tied back to leadership, demonstrating how the Turtles' unity and shared motivations, coupled with a leader ready to make sacrifices, were key to their rise and success. What were your thoughts about this movie? Do you think it'll become a cult classic? And would you like to see more movies set in this universe? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, see you in the sewers!